Sorry.
Welcome back, Trail Trash ADV today, but we are still in the garage. Jeff's here and Colin's behind the camera. Now, I'm documenting this but project over on the garage site, but we thought we'd post a supplemental video up on the ADV site because some viewers over there that aren't subscribed to my channel might find this interesting. This is a guy we ride with. This is his DRZ. It's a 2001. And just a little backstory quickly. He had a stator go bad, and he replaced the stator. He bought what he thought was a name brand stator from Fort 9, which is a reputable company here in Canada. So it's made by Kimpex, but Kimpex, I believe, is just a wholesaler, and they do sell products under their brand name, but I don't think they make any of their products. I think they're outsourced. So regardless, I'm not going to speculate on where the source of this stator came from, but needless to say, it's not a Chinese eBay special, although it may have been manufactured in China. So he put the stator in himself, and he now has a no spark issue. So we have swapped the EC out because his brother-in-law has a DRZ and I have a DRZ, and we've swapped parts from both his brother's DRZ, his brother-in-law's DRZ, and my DRZ, so we know that the coil's good. Plus the coil tests fine under Suzuki's specifications. The ignition is fine. We're getting 12 volts to the ECU. We know that the ECU is properly working. So the only thing that's not working, or the only thing that doesn't test within spec, is the Pulser coil or starter coil, ignition coil. It depends on who you ask what it's called. But basically, you've got the large windings, and we'll pull this out. So here we have a stator for a DRZ. So your magneto goes around this, and that's what generates your energy. And then you have AC voltage comes up through these lines to the rectifier regulator, where it's regulated and then rectified over to DC current, which is what you need to run everything on your bike and charge the battery. Now, also in there is this. The other thing they call this is a crank position sensor. But basically, it's another little coil in there, and every time the magneto goes across that tells the engine to fire, or it comes up and it tells the ECU to tell the coil to fire on a modern bike. We'll set this aside for now, and we're going to come back over here. So on the stator, or the Pulser coil that's coming up on this bike, we're looking at the blue and green wire. And these are just so that I can get the probes. I can't get the probes into that connector. So according to the Suzuki manual, an OEM stator should measure 450 to 600 ohms across these two wires, okay? And then before anybody says anything, there are videos out there who have found a no spark issue after replacing the stator because some Chinese eBay stator have come with these two wires opposite. And if that's the case, you're going to get a no spark issue. So you need to disassemble this connector and switch those two wires. This is not the case. This was wired properly to begin with. So just to get that out there, and yes, I've thought of that, and yes, don't post in the comments, oh, you need to swap those two wires. Because it's no. So this should measure, according to the manual, if this was an OEM stator, 450 to 600 ohms. And we have 210 ohms, okay? So, I know this doesn't test within Suzuki spec, but it's not an OEM Suzuki stator. And a 200 ohm coil, Pulser coil, is a very common one for other motorcycles, lawnmowers, blah, 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 blah. So, I was not ready just to say that this is a bad coil per se, because the manufacturer could have used a 200 ohm coil because they're very common. And the fact that this tests within 20% plus minus of 200 ohms, I mean 210 ohms, that's within range, normal operating range of a 200 ohm coil. If it was like 300 ohms, or if it was like 50 ohms, or if it was something else like was wacky, then I could definitely say it's a Pulser coil is the problem. But they may have used a 200 ohm coil. Now, whether a DRZ will run with a 200 ohm coil, I don't know. Like, that's just a question I just don't know. And I don't know where you'd find that out. So the only thing I can find in the entire ignition system is that it doesn't match Suzuki spec. So I went to a company called RM Stator, who's out of Quebec, and they, along with Ricky Stator, are probably the two, or Rick's Electronics. Those are probably two of the biggest brands or creators of aftermarket stators, most reputable, and where Ricketts Electronics is in the States and RM Stators in Quebec here in Canada. Shipping is a lot more reasonable from Quebec. So I reached out to them, and to their credit, I did have a little back and forth with their tech, and he wouldn't comment on this stator. He wouldn't even comment on an OEM stator, but he said their stators use 430 ohm pulsar coils. That's the range I should get when I go across the red, or sort of the green and blue wires. So I said, great. I will tell my customer, not my customer, but my buddy, whatever, right, that I would recommend them buy their stator from you guys, or from RM Stator. So Tim went ahead and he purchased a stator from them, and it showed up in the box. Now, during that conversation, they mentioned that they build the reason he could tell me that their stators used, or the pulsar coil was 340 ohms, is because they make them themselves to a higher standard. It's a high output stator. I took him at his word. Unfortunately, when I got the box, it said, made in China. So I'm like, well, all right, well, whatever. Maybe they outsource a few things, and, you know, he was just giving me the generic company lineup, but we make our own stuff. Maybe they do make some of it. I don't know. So right out of the box, I tested the stator, and it tested at 197 ohms across those two wires. Now I said, okay, again, we're within 20% plus minus of a 200 ohm coil. So I write them back and I say, hey, just so you know, I tested the coil before I put it in the bike, and I'm getting 197 ohms. And they said, send it back. So I sent it back to them. I packaged a brand new stator right back to them. And they come back a couple days later and said they tested it. Indeed, it was faulty. So they asked where it was within 90 days. They asked if I wanted a replacement or a refund. Now, just to back up one other detail. So Tim did buy this stator from Fortnine. They would not take the stator back because he ordered it, didn't get a chance to put it in for a couple of months afterwards. Like, he ordered it in the summer, and I think it was fall before he got back around to working on the bike. So too much time had passed. I don't want to blame Fortnine for not taking it back. You know, plus it had already been installed in the bike. And anyway, so we just Tim just ate that cost. So this one had never gone on the bike. So we sent it back to the RM Stator. They said it was defective. We asked for a replacement. They sent out a replacement. And just so you guys can see, I just took that out of the package. We're going to put these over here. And we're going to cross the green and red, or green and blue. Why do I keep saying red? So green and blue goes in here. Right there. Green and blue, green and blue. Here's our ohm meter. Okay. 197 ohms, exactly what the other stator did. I don't have proof, but I don't know whether they just lied to me and sent this one right back. Maybe this is the exact same stator I had. I don't know, because this tests exactly the same, 197. I've got video proof. I filmed it, took pictures, still pictures I sent to them. So I don't want to put that, I don't want to drain the oil, put this on the side, and put that stator in if it's not going to fix my issue. And you know what? If they said that the stators, the pulsar coils on their stator kits are supposed to ohm out at 200 ohms because it's a 200 ohm coil, well, I'd have no reason to believe that that's defective, and we just throw it in the bike. But the fact that their tech told me, and then Emma, who might be the service person, and I'm sorry, Emma, for throwing you under the bus here, but she confirmed it, that 430 ohms is what that should test at when you put an ohm meter across those two leads. So by their own admission, that is out of spec. So I don't want to throw that in the bike. So we're going to go through this whole mess again, I guess. But I just feel bad for Tim, because this is like the third or fourth stator he's been through. You know, along a multitude of other issues with this bike, which, you know, Suzuki DRZs are normally, you know, robust, reliable bikes, but he's had some trouble with this one. Anyway, I just wanted to get this up, and maybe we'll get this on the ADV channel. And again, I'm not throwing shade at anybody in particular. I just want people to be aware of the issues and to dig a little deeper when you're trying to diagnose this stuff. Anything to add, Colin?
No, I think you summed it up very well. It's not about throwing anyone under the bus. It's just about making everyone aware.
Exactly, right? So, and you know what? If I can get on a soapbox, any of you guys that are subscribed to my channel, I've had this talk, and I've got a little series on my channel of testing cheap stuff from Amazon, which we all know where it's made. Some things have been good, some things haven't been good, and then that goes back to this cost issue that we have. So a lot of European and North American made products, just like Panzio levers, GoPro cameras. Some of these products, they're not asking twice as much as a cheap Chinese version. They're asking 3, 4, 5 times as much in some cases. A set of Panzio levers are beautiful, but they're like $300 Canadian, right? And you can buy a $40 set off of Amazon that are obviously not as well manufactured, but what is the quality difference, right? Like, is it 5 times the cost quality difference? Like, so everybody has to make those decisions for themselves. But if you could say without a doubt that domestic made products were better quality, hands down, right? And you had less issues with them. They've got higher R&D costs. They've got, they have to pay their support people more. They answer the phone when you call them. If you can get all that out of a domestic manufacturer, then maybe it is worth paying more for that product. But unfortunately, and I don't know, I'm not going to get into the economics and all this stuff, but unfortunately, here's a domestic company who makes a product that we paid twice the price for than something you get on eBay or Amazon. Doesn't meet the specifications that I shouldn't say it doesn't work because we haven't tested it, but it doesn't meet the specifications that they specifically said it did. And I'm paying shipping to ship this stuff back to them. The last Stator cost me $32 to ship that FedEx back. And that's standard ground. That's not priority or anything. So is it no wonder people are going to Amazon and eBay to buy cheap products? Because you're going to pay twice, 3 times, 4 times the price, and you're going to have just the same amount, the same failure rate. Now on the phone, they even quoted me the failing rate. They said they had like a 1% or 1 point something percent fail rate on these things. Well, that may be great for the corporate line or your shareholders or whoever you're answering to up the chain. But when you're the 1 point something percent, it's frustrating as hell that you pay extra for a better quality domestic product. And it what's that? Yeah. And it doesn't perform any better than the cheap Chinese knockoff. Again, I hate supporting foreign powers. I'd rather buy domestic, right? But I'd rather buy my meat, my fruit and vegetables, local and support local. But you can only do that so much and put up with the same kind of failure rates and stuff. So if I'm buying levers and mirrors and stuff that really doesn't need to run my bike, then I have no problem paying for cheaper knockoffs when I know that the 3-4 times price quality product is not going to be that quality. And and I am going to throw shade at GoPro because they've been the number one camera business for a long time. And if you follow the channel, you know that we just upgraded the Hero 7, which you're seeing now, filmed on, because we couldn't film on the Hero 10 that we just bought, or that Colin just bought, because the battery was supposed to be charged wasn't charged, and we found out that we need an extra cage or media thing to run an external mic. And so if you're going to pay that much more for a product, it should work. It shouldn't not work. It shouldn't have dumb compromises that you have to live with. A little update on the RM Stator issue with the DRZ400. So I just got off the phone with RM Stator because the chances of both stators that they sent being bad is slim, because they have, according to them, they got less than 1% return rate on those being defective. So, and now the part that's confusing me is this, the first stator we sent back and they said they tested it and it was bad. But that 200 ohm testing that I'm getting across the stator wire, the Pulser Coil wires, is the Fort 9 stator is giving me 200 ohms, and both of the stators from RM Stator are giving me 200 ohms. So she went and talked to the tech and clarified that I was looking for a 430 range because that's what the Suzuki manual states. And I thought when he said, the first tech I talked to, it said 430 ohms. But she went out and double checked, and it's not 430 ohms. It's within 20% plus minus of 345 ohms. Now, My math isn't great, but that's still using a calculator. You know, should work around. Worst, we should be getting a reading of 270 ohms, about, right? And ideally, if it's 345. Okay. The lowest I'd feel comfortable with is always around 300 ohms, right? Like anything below that, it just doesn't seem like that's working. But now we're on the third stator that tests at 200 ohms. So, but she assured me that if it doesn't work after I put it in the bike, then they will take it back if it's a problem with the stator. So that means they'll test it again and all this other stuff. Now, according to my tools, it tests the same as the one that they said was bad. So,
which is still less than the minus 20%.
Right.
You know, within minus 20% of 345.
Right.
Because minus 20% on 345 is 276.
Right.
So you're still 75 ohms short of the low end of their 20% range that they have self-declared the stator be.
Right.
So they want you to go. This is the first time Jeff has told me this. Like, so I'm struggling to understand. So they want you to go through the hassle of putting the stator in the bike.
No, that is my option. Oh. I can ship it back as is. They said they will take it back and test it. If they take it back and test it and it's bad, they will exchange a refund. If they take it back and test it and it's good, then we're out of stator and the shipping's on me. It's just so odd that 3 stators now, 2 from RM Stator and 1 from Fort 9, all the pulsar coils all test within a couple of percentage points of each other, right? Like all between 197 to 205 ohms. That's where they all are, right? So that's really weird. So, but the thing is, the 2 RM stators never even got to the bike. So I can't say there's something on the bike that's causing it, or something's grounding out or shorting out or whatever, because those 2 RM stators never even touched that DRZ. So yeah. So we're going to get this video uploaded. And if anybody has any suggestions for me, put it down in the comment section.
Please.
So, because it may be a couple more weeks before I get this mess sorted out, because I'm seriously at a loss. And just to restate, in case I didn't state it earlier in the video, I mean, we swapped ECUs, we swapped ignition switches and coils with 2 other, mine and another working DRZ. So sometimes some of those components we swapped twice. So not the ignition, but the coil and the ECU were swapped twice, both on the other bike and on my bike. So,
and you tested the coils, the OEM coils on the other bikes?
Yep. Yeah, everything tests within Suzuki spec. Everything is within Suzuki spec.
Except those coils.
Except the Pulser Coil.
Even
the stators, all 3 stator wire windings, they all test fine, right? According to within Suzuki specs, regardless of what specs that RM Stator or whoever else is quoting. So they're all working. The only thing that doesn't test within Suzuki spec is the Pulser Coil, and I don't know what the spec on the Kimpex stator is supposed to be. But the confusion, again, just to clarify, is the fact that RM Stator told me that their pulsar coils should test at 345 ohms, plus or minus 20%, which is still too low. They're at 200 ohms, they're still too low. But 200 ohms is a common pulsar coil type of coil. So, like, I think Ricky's Electronics in the States, they've got a few videos up on testing stators and coils, and all their videos, their pulsar coils are rated at 200 ohms. So that's what they use, their 200 ohm coils. Is that compatible with the DRZ's ECU? I don't know. This is something I can't find out from any other sources. So again, if there's somebody out there that knows something, let me know. So instead of shipping this last stator back, I think what I may do is I may just take, we got to do an oil change on this bike anyway, so I think we'll drop the oil and we'll wire in that stator, and maybe I won't run all the wires and do it neat. I'll just run it outside the frame or whatever, but just plug it in and see if we got spark. So, and if we got spark, then we'll call it good. We'll say that's a bad stator, and Tim's out the cost of that stator. because Fortnite, no, I'm saying Fortnite didn't take it back, but that's because he waited too long. But anyway, I think that's where we're going to leave it. And so this video will probably go up on the ADV channel, and then I'll probably parrot it on the garage channel and just throw it in there with this whole series of everything else we've done to the bike for the spring refresh. Anyway, that's enough for the soapbox. You got to make those decisions for yourselves. But I'm just getting a little frustrated with trying to support local and having it bite me in the ass. So it's no wonder people say screw it and go spend their money overseas. All right, well, for Trail Trash ADV this time, Colin behind the camera, Jeff up front. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Check out my channel, Trail Trash Garage, and we'll catch
Right up here.
right up there.
Just click right up there, right here.
We'll catch you on the next video.